welcome back to part 2 of using Excel to analyze all of our data. So this video is going to show you how you actually make graphs. I'm going to be doing it exclusively in the online version, but if you actually are working on a computer and can open up the desktop version, there's a lot more that it can do. And you can hear my child downstairs screaming to Sesame Street. In case you're wondering, the letter of the day is S for shapes. I don't know what the number of the day is, so stay tuned. I'm sure we'll hear that in a minute. So if you have the desktop version, it will do a lot more things and can make it a lot prettier and sleeker and more professional. But I know not all of us have access to that right now, so I'm just going to show you the online version. So here we go. This is where we left off. We've got our 13 pieces of data in, and I'm going to show you how to make a couple of graphs. Once you get the hang of it, you're going to be able to make these however you want. So the first one I'm going to show you is if you were going to do a scatter plot. And a scatter plot is going to be when you have two pieces of data that are both numerical, meaning numbers. So for example, you could not do a scatter plot of how dressed up you were and always, rarely, never. You can't put dots next to those things. But I can do a scale where I take how dressed up they were and what grade you got on the test. Scatter plots are really easy. You don't need to do anything else other than what you already have. So what I'm going to do, I have my cursor up here, so I just clicked on it. I'm going to highlight, including the headings, because then they'll automatically input into your chart, all of my data that I want. And so you just kind of hold and highlight it. And luckily, they're written right next to each other. You may have an issue if you're trying to do two columns that aren't next to each other that you need to put together. I'll show you how to do that in a second. You can just press Control to get the two pieces or move them off to the side. But anyway, so my two pieces of numbers are next to each other. I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to go over to Scatter Plot. I'm going to click Scatter Plot. Bam. Done. There's a graph. Let's see what we can do to kind of make it a little bit nicer. So what I'm going to do, down here at the bottom, you're going to see these options for sheets. Let me see if I can extend this just a little bit. There you go. And I already have another sheet open up. If you press plus, it'll open up a new sheet. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on this, Control Copy. I'm going to bring it over to sheet 2, Control V, which will paste it. That way I can kind of play around with this. I go back to my first sheet, and I'm just going to click on it. Control X will delete it. Quick shortcut. Otherwise, you can just delete it. Right click and delete. So here's our scatter plot. It's kind of bland, but I can see what data is going on in it. There's a couple things I'd want to clean up. Like, for example, what grade did you get on that test? This right here, I can assume is grades. This down here, I wouldn't necessarily know what it is. So if I click on my graph and I go to chart, and I can start playing with these options here. So chart title, I can say above chart or centered. I can edit it. I like it, so I'm not going to edit it. But down here at the bottom, I don't like that I don't have a horizontal axis. So I'm going to go here, title below axis, I'm going to type it in. How dressed up were you? Press OK. And there we go. All right, now I don't need this key here. That's a legend. So I'm going to go to legend, turn that off. And now it's all right. I mean, again, if I go, I'm going to show you at the end, if you open up the desktop app, how you can make it look a little bit nicer, but it gets my point across. So if I'm looking at this data here, I've got some outliers here down at 0. If I took those away, I can see that this pretty much trends up. So what that's telling me is the more dressed up you were, the higher your grade got. But remember, the two things that we need to consider are, one, there's only 13 pieces of data. And I do have these outliers here. I have people that were scoring very high and zeros. So that is something to consider when you're looking at those two things. All right, so there's a scatter plot. For many of you, you're trying to compare a qualitative thing, like maybe demographic, like gender, and some other concept. Now, I didn't actually ask about gender, but I'm going to show you if you're trying to compare two categories of things that aren't numbers. If they're not numbers, the computer needs to know how many numbers there are. So you're going to have to do a little bit of counting. So I'm analyzing my data and I'm going, well, what am I really trying to compare? Well, I'm trying to find out if dressing up has anything to do with your grades. So if I'm looking at my data, I might go, well, maybe I should compare the people who dress up and what their actual overall grades are. So watch what happens if I try and highlight this data and I go insert and I say, yeah, let's do a double bar graph. That sounds good. And I go to bar graph. I don't want a bar graph. If I do this, what is that? That's nothing. Has no idea what's going on. It's a blank graph. It's nonsense. So I can click on this, Control X, delete it. Okay, so that's not what I want. The computer is only as smart as you want it to be. It counts numbers. You have words. You have to make the computer know how many there are of each. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a table anywhere in this document, okay, down here at the bottom or over here on the side, and I'm going to make a secondary table that counts everything up. So I'm going to make a column right here listing how much I dress up. So there was always, sometimes, or sorry, always, and you want to do it in the order you have it. Often, sometimes, rarely, and never. All right, so those were our 5 options on dress up days. This also could be things like male, female, or it could be something like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Okay, then over here are the things I'm comparing it to. So they could get A's and B's. They could get B's. B's. They could get B's and C's. And I don't think I had anything else. No. So these are my 3 options. Okay, and again, I can like center them a little bit if I wanted to. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort and I'm just going to count and fill in this table. We call it a frequency table because it's how frequent are these things happening to fill in my numbers. So always. Well, I only had one person that said always, and they were A's and B's. So I had one person that always dressed up and got A's and B's. 0 for here, 0 for here. Now let's go to often. So I scroll down, let's see, often. I have 2 oftens. Both of them said A's and B's. So I'm going to say, well, 2 people said often and A's and B's. There's no one who said often for B's and no one who said often for B's and C's. And I'm going to repeat this process. So sometimes 2 people said A's and B's, none here, none here. Rarely, I have all 3 people that said B's and C's. So 0, 0, 3. And then on never, okay, so never, look, I've got a couple options. For never, I have 1 that said A and B. Never, I have 1 that said B's. And on never, I also have 2 that said B's and C's. And actually, look, this last never also said A's and B's. So I actually had 2 A's and B's. Okay. And you could sort it anyway. So I had it sorted up by dress days. But you can sort them by this or sort them by this. Now, if you count, you should have 13 because I had 13 people take my survey. So I should make sure I have that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm good. All right. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight, click here. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to make my double bar graph here. This is where most of you are going to be making your data. This is where you're really going to see that comparison between, like, are you trying to compare, are certain genders more apt to do this? So you'll list out your gender or your qualifier here, whatever you're comparing to, and then count up the numbers. Okay, so I've got my table. I'm going to do insert. I'm going to do column, 2D column. Here we go. All right, kind of ugly. Let's play around with it. I'm going to click on it, Control Copy. I'm going to go over to Sheet 2, Control V. I'm just pasting it in here so I can play around with it a little bit. All right. Here are some problems. First of all, I don't even have a title for this. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to Chart. I'm going to go to Chart Title, and I'm going to do Above Chart. I'm going to say grades and how often you dress up on test days. Okay, there we go. Very nice. Over here, these are not GPAs. This is frequency. This is how often these people said that. So I had 1 person here, 2 people here, sometimes here, never. So when we start analyzing this, okay, this is why I needed more than 13 of you to take this dang survey, because I don't have good data to analyze. If I look at this, I really have to kind of stare of what this is trying to tell me. But here's what I see. Blue is what we want. Blues are A's and B's. Most of the people who are in the A's and B's, okay, always, sometimes, always, often, sometimes. There's no one that is a B or a B and C student that is sometimes or above. The only B and C students are rarely and never. So what I could hypothesize is, well, B and C students either rarely or never dress up. Now, can I say that that for sure is because they don't dress up that they're B and C students? No, but according to the data, there is a connection, okay? And then we just have a lot of people that just don't dress up, okay? So that's one way that we can do another chart there. The last one that you might want to do, I'm going to click on this, exit out, is you can always do a pie chart. Pie chart, you still have to do a frequency of. So I could do, but it's only for one piece of data. So I could do a pie chart on this. So strongly disagree, 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 agree, strong, neither, agree. Well, we didn't have a strongly agree. All right, so then I'm going to go here and I'm going to say, click here. I'm going to say sort ascending. Oops. Cancel. It's mad at me. Oops. Sorry. All right. So how many strongly disagrees do I had? I had one strongly disagree. I had 1, 2, 3 disagrees. I had 1 agree. I don't need this other agree. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 neithers. So I highlight this again. I'm going to go to insert. I'm going to do pie chart. I do pie chart. There's pie chart. Basic, not pretty. So here's what I want to show you as far as what you can do if you opened up the desktop app. So if you go to open in desktop app, you're going to have a lot more options to play around with. So I'm going to take this pie chart just to kind of show you how to make it better. This pie chart is crap. If you were to turn this in, I would just yell at you for this. What does this mean? I don't know what any of the percentages are. I don't even know what the title is. So when you go here, okay, you can change around a lot of options. Look under design. I can immediately kind of make it a little bit nicer with some preset things. So like, let me click this one. First of all, this has percentages in it, which is what you need in a pie chart. The other things you might can play around with, and this is what I like here. So if you hover over these options, I'm going to hover over the plus. I'm going to hover over data levels, or sorry, legend, more options. And you're going to see different things you could do. So I can play around with the text. I could put the thing on the left or the bottom. Let's put it down there at the bottom. You know what I want is I want to put my chart title on. And then we can call it, does dressing up on test days increase scores? Okay. You also could click on this. You could do your plus sign here. You could do data levels and you do more options. You could take off percentages, put on percentages, take off value. You don't need that. And you can move them all around. The other thing you could do here, so if I come back over here to these ugly things, again, watch, here's our chart from before. If I go to design, I can immediately spruce it up a little bit. You also can play around with different options and make it a lot nicer. So that's what you can do when you're in the desktop app that you can't necessarily do online. And then when you're done, you just press X up here and it's going to upload and it'll save here. So all done, you can resume editing. And I say, yeah, I want to do that. So we resume editing. And it will save, as you can see, on your file right here. Okay, so there you go. That is how you can make graphs in Excel. And I don't want this to go much longer than 15 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. If you have individual questions, you know how I learned Excel? I Googled it a lot. So if you get stuck, Google whatever question you have. My data won't select when I'm trying to select in Excel. And you're going to have something that pops up right away, okay? Send me any questions you have, but now you have enough information to get your data in and start collecting data. So good luck, everybody.